Hi, this is Dr. Ted Lin again. Let me kind of just center everything. Today's date is Saturday, March 14th, 2020. This is the second video that I'm putting out today. I just want to kind of talk about the risks and the numbers and kind of why I think, some of these things are significant, and also just to, kind of discuss some of the things that I've been seeing on the media, both, traditional media as well as social media, and why I think some of these numbers or data that people are quoting, you have to take it a few levels deeper to understand and maybe read between the lines to see what's going on. So, I've said in some of my other videos, initially, this was not on my radar. About two and a half weeks ago, it was just another virus coming out of China, right? We've heard it before: swine flu, N1H1, avian bird flu. We've heard this all before, and it was never really a big deal. When this started getting out of China into Italy and Iran, was when my friend, he's a hedge fund, he does a lot of financial investments, and we kind of toy around with kind of biotech, stocks. So we've been kind of talking about, kind of various investment options and whatnot for a little while now. So he texts me and he's like, hey, what do you think of this coronavirus? And I didn't take things real seriously. I pretty much told him, it's too bad modern medicine kind of eliminates Darwinism, because nature can't thin kind of a deadly species like human beings. And I think I might have spoken too soon. So what he had said to me was, hey, Ted, the initial data coming out of China for in terms of their economic data coming out of China for February has been really interesting, because it looks like everything is completely shut down. So production, output, manufacturing, it was something like, I think he said something was 10 to 20% of normal. It was pretty much zero. So what he asked me is, hey, if you were a doc out there, or if you ran the government, what would cause you to shut this down? Like, just shut the whole country down, in essence. And I think that kind of got my attention. So we started kind of looking into the data in terms of publications that was coming out, Lancet, JAMA, traditional medical journals, data coming from the WHO. And like I said earlier, we get a lot of our data from Twitter feeds. So Twitter is almost like it's a little bit like a canary in the coal mine, right? Because people are going to go ahead and kind of put out these like quick blasts and stuff like that. So it gives you a little bit of idea in terms of what's going on the front line. By the time your media gets to it, by the time it gets to publications, you're already kind of weeks behind. And in something that's fast moving like this, you want to be able to get little clues in terms of what's kind of going on at other areas that's not within your immediate kind of experiential kind of evidence area. So China, their internet's locked down, so we couldn't really get a whole lot. So I went ahead and talked to my family in Taiwan, and so kind of without going into the political background of that, you hear some crazy stories about, their hospital's getting overrun. It's like people who, get sick, there's not enough room in their hospital, they don't want to stay in their house, so they're just kind of out on the streets. They're not counting the people who die at home, because, you're not going to waste the test kit on a corpse. You hear all these like crazy, kind of rumors that aren't substantiated at all, right? And yeah, they might be crazy rumors, but it does potentially give you a little bit of idea of, man, worst case scenario, maybe there is something there, right? So we pretty much looked at the numbers, and our initial kind of data from the WHO showed that this was, it affected a lot of people, yes, and most of the fatalities were from people who were older. With each decade, I think I have it right here in front of me, I'm looking down. Your mortality rates are about 0.2%, from your age 10 to age 50. From 50 to 60, it's about 1.3%. 60 to 70 is 3.6%. 70 to 80, you're at 8%. 80 and above, you're at close to 15%. So you could see the mortality rates really go up. Okay, so I think that's kind of what's being reported. Hey, it's not a big deal. I don't know why you guys care, because, hey, look, your fatality rates are low, right? This is something that affects older people. Now, there was something in the data that was kind of interesting was, and other kind of things that, people were saying, hey, look, China, crappy air quality, everybody out there are smokers. So, your mortality is probably way higher. People crapped on, kind of Chinese healthcare, saying that they probably don't have the healthcare facilities that we would have here. So we're going to be fine. This is kind of a Chinese problem. They have a sicker population, crappy air quality, lots more smokers, which is fine. But one of the things that kind of came through was when you look at the hospitalization rates, right? So let me kind of take another step back and break it down. So when you look at the WHO and Chinese data, right? Absolutely correct. 80% was mild, right? Mild cases. 20% were what they called severe and critical cases, okay? And without going too much into medicine, let's just kind of break it down, right? Because we've been hearing, 80% of the people are fine, you're gonna have a mild case, which is absolutely true. That's what the data has been showing, right? Do you know what the other 20%, and this is what I've been trying to tell people, is, hey, the other 20% based on criteria, so they have a very strict criteria in terms of what they consider critical cases and severe cases. And if you look at that criteria, I don't have the exact criteria in front of me, but pretty much in long story short, it means that you're gonna get hospitalized, okay? Which means that 80% of people who get this, based on their studies, right, do fine. They don't need to get hospitalization. 20% do need to end up getting hospitalized, right? So initially you just kind of assume, okay, the hospitalizations are gonna be your older population, people who are sicker. So again, as a 40-some-year-old, why does it matter, right? I think what was interesting was when you look at the hospitalized healthcare workers that got infected, they were hospitalized at a rate of 15%, and their fatality was all at 2%, which is kind of consistent with the overall population, right? The overall data said, hey, 20% of the people get hospitalized, fatality rate about 2 to 3%. So when I go back and I look at the hospital workers, I'm like, man, this is kind of similar. What's going on, right? I'm assuming hospital workers are younger, right? Because medicine, in theory, you should be able to take better care of yourself. And also, if you're sick in a hospital, if you're rationing, kind of your resources, guess what? I would think that your healthcare worker is going to get priority, right? So, some people are saying, when you run out of, resources, some people die who, normally would have been saved. So I'm looking at, the healthcare workers, are getting hospitalized and dying at similar rates. So what's kind of going on, right? So that gave me a little bit of a clue to say, hey, maybe it's not just the old people that are getting hospitalized. This might be also something where younger people are also getting hospitalized, and this is going to be a problem, right? So, kind of interpreting the data, if you kind of just make some theories a few levels deeper, the way you could look at that is, yes, older people are getting hospitalized at a higher rate. Younger people are also getting hospitalized, but they're making it through, right? So based on the, kind of interventions and treatments and whatnot. The other thing that was also really interesting was when you look at the case studies coming out of China in terms of medications that they were giving these people, it just seemed like they were throwing anything that was available, right? They were just shotgunning any sort of antiretrovirals. They were throwing people on antibiotics. They were throwing people on steroids, and it wasn't consistent. So what that kind of tells me is the doctors were like, holy crap, we don't have anything that we could do to treat. And usually we don't give people off-label medications, right? Unless we're really in the bind and we're like, hey, we have nothing else to lose. We might as well try something, right? So what that tells me as a physician is you have went through all your standard, your routine care of supportive care, kind of if they had an infection, a bacterial infection, you would give them antibiotics and whatnot. I mean, the Chinese docs were throwing everything on board, right? So what that tells me is, Jesus, they have went to the end of their line. People were still dying. So at this point, they're just going to try everything, okay? So that was kind of the Chinese data. And, so we were like, my friend and I were like, okay, well, we're going to have to kind of see what happens with Italy, right? Italy had a pretty aggressive intervention. They shut down these hill towns, pretty much, kind of sealed them off that had the cases that were coming through. And we're like, okay, well, I guess we'll find out in about a week, because when you look at the infection curves, right, the way the symptoms present and when you hit the hospital, people start hitting the hospital from when they are first diagnosed from 7 to 10 days. So week to week and a half, that's when they hit the hospitals. And then your fatality starts happening from 10 to 14 days. And if you're older, it's probably sooner than that, but that's kind of the general progression. So we were looking at Italy's case probably about a week ago, and we're like, okay, well, I guess we're going to find out in about a week. So we kept track of that, and we looked at the Twitter, what was coming out of Twitter. Italy, democracy, free world, their internet isn't going to get shut down. And when we started to get kind of data coming out of Italy, and also just kind of Seattle, looked like there was cases coming out of Seattle. Same thing with New York. We were kind of tracking those. The results were consistent. It looked like there was a lot of people that was going in the hospital. They were ending up in the ICU. They need ventilated like vent care or ICU care, mechanical ventilation, and it was pretty consistent. The CT scans that were getting leaked out in terms of what they were doing, you could see the physicians are just kind of going on Twitter trying to get some information, right, in terms of what might be helpful. You could see, the Twitter kind of going back to China. Hey, what were they doing in China? What helped? What didn't, right? And that tells me a lot. When docs are going on Twitter trying to ask what is out there, okay, and then you got to start thinking, this is something that's kind of serious, and we probably need to start, kind of getting our act together. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Okay, so, some of the things that people were saying, oh, again, fatality only for older people. I think what's kind of going on is, yes, mostly affects older people. It's going to kill you off faster, but it does affect young people as well, probably not to the same degree. Just because it doesn't kill you doesn't mean that you don't need hospitalized care. And the way this virus works is, flu, people have kind of compared this to flu. Flu kills you because you end up getting a secondary bacterial infection. Some of your chronic condition ends up getting exacerbated, and then you go downhill. But flu itself doesn't usually kill you, okay? COVID-19, what it does is, it floods your lungs, you have massive inflammation, and it shuts down your lungs, okay? This infection process itself, right, without anything else, could land you in the ICU, okay? So this is gonna be one of those things where, it's the virus itself could potentially be deadly. You don't have to have any sort of comorbidities, okay? So, and some people might say, hey, I'm fear mongering or whatnot. This is, I've had discussions with, our administration, because from a public health perspective, you don't want panic. This is my perspective is, when I panic is when I get crappy information. Someone tells me one thing and I discover something completely different, right? So my goal right now is to kind of get you guys, hey, this is coming from, granted, I'm just one doc, okay, but this is coming from my analysis, right? I don't want people to freak out, but people need to know, the data. People need to have transparency to see what is going on and what the information is. Like, keeping people in the dark does not help, okay? Telling people that, hey, we are ready for this, when you're looking at the ICU cases in Italy and China, right, is not a good idea, right? You have to tell people, hey, this is what we know, this is how serious it is, and that way, as a community, as a country, we could go ahead and react, right? And also just for yourself, you need to kind of decide for yourself, if I think that this is just the common flu, I'm not gonna change my behavior, right? And this is when things are your cases are gonna blow up exponentially. So that's kind of what I see based on the numbers, right? So just because you're young doesn't mean it won't affect you, okay? This isn't just something for the old. And even if it is just something for the old, you could see these curves, these exponential, countries, it's consistent. It's not just, in China. If you look at what China did before their lockdown, the curve in terms of their cases, consistent with Italy, right? It looks like initially it's consistent with South Korea that has pretty widespread testing. And just real quick, South Korea, people are like, there's not that many fatalities in South Korea and whatnot. I think the difference is South Korea tested widely early. Within the next kind of, week, 5 to 7 days, we're gonna know, because I think people are gonna start getting sick in South Korea. Their hospitalization rates is gonna go up because there's a lag time. People talk about, the Princess Cruises, XYZ, fatality is a lot lower and whatnot. You want to kind of take a look at their fatalities, because people are right now they're looking at the number of deaths already versus how many people are infected, right? But you have to look at the closed cases. One of my other posts on my Facebook page, you can't look at fatalities and just divide your number of fatalities by this denominator, which is your number of infected people on a cruise ship. They're like, hey, this is a closed system, this is great, right? So your fatality, I think they were quoting as, like 0.8%, as their reason why this is, the 2 to 3% is 3 to 4 times too high. What I'm saying is you want to kind of take a look at your fatalities compared to the people who are completely resolved, which means that you have had 2 negative testing, I want to say, I don't know how many days apart, but that's kind of what they're using as the criteria as resolved cases. So when you look at that, you divide the fatalities divided by the closed cases on these cruise ships, right? Mortality is 2 to 3%. It's consistent. All of these numbers look pretty close, okay? So that's kind of the risk. And that's, I could go into a lot more of the data, but, it's, Italy, unfortunately, the numbers coming out of Italy is consistent with what we saw in China. I don't think the numbers in China are that far off. Italy has an amazing healthcare system. Granted, their population is much older, so that might kind of skew the data a little bit. But it's they have good healthcare, and they don't have as much smokers. I don't think. I did not look this up, but I think the data is real, and I think there is a reason why we're also doing the interventions now, because I think people realize that this is going to blow up exponentially. If you look at the curve in terms of where we're at, we're about a week and a half behind Italy, which means that in about a week, and again, in about a week, you could see whether or not I'm completely full of crap or not, right? Because in about a week, this thing is our cases. And when we start testing, right now, we don't have the testing, so I think our numbers are really suppressed. So in about a week, our numbers are going to go up, a week and a half to 2 weeks. We're going to start getting a lot of hospitalizations. And this is when, if we don't kind of slow down the spread and what they were talking about, flattening that curve, right? That's when our hospitals are going to get overrun. And, for those of you that think, we're ready for this, our hospital has plenty of ventilators, plenty of ICU space. Man, that's a whole other video. But I could tell you as an ER doc, working in the critical access hospital, granted we don't have the resources that some of the big hospitals do, but it's not unusual for me to try and get a ICU bed, even the medical bed in the Front Range in the city, and I can't get one. I need to hold these patients in the ER for a little bit until beds could get cleared the following day, because hey, guess what? We're a capitalistic society, right? So efficiency maximizes your profits. So if you already have a pretty full hospital and ICU to begin with, if you have something like this that's far-reaching, it's really good to test what we're able to do. Okay, again, I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm here to tell you the facts as I see them. I could be completely wrong, but everything that I've quoted you, public information. You could go ahead and check. It's on the WHO, kind of Lancet, JAMA. Nothing that I have said is not true. And on the flip side of nothing that the media has quoted, they've been pretty accurate with their numbers, but the interpretation is what is different. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of kick another video in terms of just to go back a little bit more on testing, and also kind of just what me and my family are doing, because man, it's kind of a cluster. Because kids are at home now. Hill and I'm a physician, she's a nurse. We're trying to figure out kind of risk analysis is like, hey, we have a place up in the mountains, could we go there? It's a cluster. And I'll put together something else on another video on that. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Sorry for the roughness. Again, you can kind of see I have no idea how to work this. So yeah, this isn't real clean, but at least it gets the information out. If you have any questions, ask. It's a lot easier for me to record these videos. And again, sorry if I kind of run through some of these and it's not extremely coherent. I just want to get the information out at this point. I can't clean up these videos because information is just coming at me really quick. And I just want to say one more thing is, hey, for those that are in medicine, this is just, I've been on everybody's case, my friends on social media, like, don't post fake crap. Like, fact check it. Like, we have enough problems right now without people spreading false information. And I have seen my friends who are in the medical field just share something where they have not fact checked. And now we're getting all this crazy BS in terms of what you need to do to kind of stop this coronavirus and stuff like that. And Jesus Christ, people, take 5 minutes to fact check. You're in medicine, you're gonna know whether or not this is BS or not pretty damn quick. Like, don't hit that share button. It's crazy, dude. So anyway, sorry I'm just kind of aggravated and a little annoyed. It's been kind of a long few days, and I love my kids, but with them being at home, I can't get any work done. I can't do anything. So again, I'm sorry if I haven't kicked out anything in a timely fashion. So hey, good luck. If you have any questions, again, kind of leave comments, post on Facebook page. I may not be able to respond personally anymore. There's just too many questions coming in. But what I'm going to do is try and kind of do Q&A videos to put everything together. Okay, thanks.